Hey everybody, welcome to the post All-Star edition of Away Games, the first post All-Star edition this year. I'm Kevin McCaffrey. Over there is Adam Mamawala, who has a very nice apartment.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're
I
welcome.
take no credit for it at all, but I do appreciate it nonetheless.
Yes.
I'm a lucky man. Yeah, welcome, listeners, one and all. And when can we get an All-Star game at Wrigley? I mean, on one hand, I want it now. On the other hand, I've always maintained that I need enough time to be enough of a C-list celebrity to be in the celebrity softball game.
To
I
get in
mean,
the mix, yeah.
it was a pretty good roster this year. Like if we need like Zach LaVine famous, I'm not getting in that game.
No, that makes it feel a little, that takes the pressure off a little bit. Zach LaVine, who was balling pretty hard, hit a bomb,
Yeah.
left-handed batter. He hit a homer in the celebrity softball game, then accidentally kind of robbed a homer. It seemed like he was going to let whoever the guy playing center field, the non-athlete playing center was, and then he sort of stumbled over it, and LaVine was like, well, I guess I'll catch it then. And it was, he had a very good, very fun performance. But yeah, as far as Wrigley getting the game goes, of course, I want Wrigley to have the All-Star game. I want to have it when there's going to be a number of Cubs All-Stars, too.
Right.
You know, how soon is that going to be? I don't know. This year, the Cubs had more All-Stars pull out of the game than they had play in the game, 2-1. You know, Dansby, Swanson was injured. Marcus Stroman took it off for rest, but Justin Steele got in there and did great.
He did. And, it reminds me that I was fortunate enough to attend the 2018 Home Run Derby and All-Star game in Washington, D.C. And not only did I get to see Baez and Schwarber in the Home Run Derby, both of whom did very well, and one of whom was robbed, arguably, but we won't dwell on
I
that.
believe so. Should have been Schwarber's, yeah.
It should have been, but, they want the hometown guy to win. But I'm looking back at the rosters. I got to see Wilson Contreras hit a home run in the first pitch he ever saw
Yep.
in an All-Star game, which I think, wasn't he like one of the only, if not the only person to hit a first pitch home run in his first Major League at-bat and All-Star game?
Yeah, I think there might have been one other guy now that you're saying that, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, he's unsurprisingly for those who know Wilson, he's not patient in a big moment. He wants to get after it.
But surprisingly, only one other Cub that year. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It was Baez in the starting lineup and Contreras, and John Lester was the Cubs pitching representative. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 Cubs is good, and that is what the Cubs had, at least selected for the game for this one. But yeah, I want Wrigley to get an All-Star game, but I want the All-Star game to come to Wrigley when the team deserves it, when the organization deserves it, when it's fitting. It feels like, when it should be, when the Cubs are once again one of the central locations of baseball. And that's, I mean, they're 42 and 47 at the All-Star break this year. That's not, I don't know. It always feels weird to me when the All-Star game is at a team's center that like just isn't in it. And the Cubs are kind of in it, I guess, right now. But yeah. So, dear God, they have to be more in it next year. So, sure, fuck it. Let's get it next year or the year after, but it should be soon.
Yeah. But any big, other than Steele pitching well on his birthday and his son's birthday and my nephew's birthday, what a day.
It was Steele's and his son's birthday?
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Oh, man, I guess I didn't realize it went like that. But yeah, that was
his birthday, his son turns 1, and All-Star game appearance.
That's pretty good, man. That's well timed, and he just dominated half the Texas Rangers who were elected to the game too, getting Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, and Jonah Heim all out in around an Austin Hayes single, just a soft single. So it was a great appearance for Justin Steele, and really like just a casually. It's almost a boring inning in the way that Justin Steele has shown us so many times this year, where he just, professionally worked his way through the lineup. No walks. I love that. For a guy coming in such a big stage for the first time, it was very cool to see him just get in there and deal.
I think it's one of the main reasons that I really believe that Steele could be a part of the next great Cubs team is because he has that thing that he just seems pretty unflappable and not really affected by the moment.
Yeah.
Obviously the All-Star game is a really cool opportunity, but he also less than a month ago started in front of 60,000 people in an enormous stadium in London and pitched great.
Yeah.
And he just never seems flustered. Even when he's struggling, he always seems really level-headed, which it's this weird mix of like very level-headed, but also very passionate when things go well. But he doesn't have that on the other side where he's like, if he makes a bad pitch, he's like smacking himself in the face or
Yeah.
Turk Wendling his glove into the
Right.
stands.
Yeah, no, I think he's a guy who seems to get better and lock in even more when the moments matter. And exactly what you're saying, that strikes me as a guy who you do want when the team is actually good and competing, and someone I do believe in. And the Cubs have 3 starters this year that I would trust in big moments between Hendricks, Stroman, and Steele. Although, you know, with 2 of them, it's sort of like it's not really a given they'll be around much longer than a month, but we can talk about that in a little bit. Is there any other All-Star highlights for you? The Home Run Derby was fantastic.
Home Run Derby was fun, like performance-wise. I do find it not the best viewing experience. It's just like a kind of sensory overload because of how quickly the pitches are being thrown, as observed by a child who was struck in the face.
The kid's got to get out of the. You got to get.
I
the
have
kids
said
out
that
of the
for
outfield.
so many years.
This
I
isn't
really
the
have.
this isn't the first time either. A kid got joinked in the head a few years ago. I know there was a clip going around where Pete Alonso slammed a ball to left field. A kid gets laid out by the ball, and then they cut back to Pete Alonso, who didn't see that happen, but he's like dancing in the box, and it's a funny juxtaposition. But yeah, it's just. I know you're trying to let the kids have fun, but they're running over each other. The ball, how fast and furious the balls are coming. Maybe you could convince me if it was like the old format where it was, you know, you were pacing it out better. But when it's just a machine gun of baseballs at 100 miles an hour and up coming out there, it's reckless. It's, you know, I don't want to be fun police, but it's fucking stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But all that aside, amazing performance by Julio Rodriguez. Even though he didn't win, it was kind of Josh Hamilton-esque, where it's like, sure, he didn't win the whole thing, but everyone's going to remember what he did in that first round. So, like, no one's sitting here other than me, a nerd, saying like, well, actually, Justin Morneau won that year. Like, who cares?
Right.
It is ultimately a spectacle. Obviously, there's money at stake, which is why Pete Alonso. I think Alonso might be done. I feel like the last 2 years have possibly soured him on it.
I mean, Julio Rodriguez is his kryptonite. Julio has knocked him out both times, right? And
also, his pitcher was not pitching well. It was
no, and it's just like and it's tough because a pitcher has to be like perfect to not get criticized on
Right.
Twitter and stuff about this, and that's also part of the problem with the sort of timed rounds like this. Also, the fact that the timed round thing of it like it's exciting, but part of the fun with a home run derby is seeing where the ball lands, and there was
Right.
almost none of that. Like that was so much of the fun of Josh Hamilton's famous famous round when he also did not win that year, but it was just like seeing how far those home runs were going. Adley Rutschman, another standout performance, going playing with his dad, rocking balls out to right, and then in the extra time switch sides of the plate to hit righty and
Such a
hammered I think
power
the
move.
first 6 in a row. It was
that's
so
incredible.
exciting. And then
Also, his dad was throwing great pitches.
his dad did great, and his dad was like really down to earth, not annoying baseball dad before the thing. He was talking about it, and he said, if we were really trying to win this thing, I wouldn't be in here pitching, but he said he wanted the experience of us together. So it was great to see them do well, and then Luis Robert immediately eliminated them with an incredible round of his own. So
That it was so good he apparently injured himself.
yeah, that sucks. That's another thing with the timed round. Rosarena seemed fine. Rosarena was really one of the stars of the weekend with a great home run derby performance, and then the great catch in left field. Then immediately hits a single, and then gets caught stealing second. Like he was just bringing excitement, doing the cross arm pose over and over. He was a lot of fun. But watching him in that timed round at first, I was like, he seems like he's going to pull something. Like it felt dangerous.
Well, to be swinging that hard that many times in a row, like I think it would be exhausting even if you were just doing like a normal BP round for 4 minutes where there was a pitch every 3 seconds. But it's a little similar to the 3-point contest where it's like at a certain point it's endurance as much as anything.
Totally.
And hopefully these guys practiced it. Like I would not want to do it without having tried to just see, like, simulate it, right? Do in your BP in the final week or something leading up to it, or even before you agree to it, be like, can I do this without embarrassing myself?
Yeah.
So I do wish there was some middle ground between the olden days where you would have to watch someone take 12 pitches
Yeah,
because
work
they
a
didn't want to
walk.
waste an out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have Berman saying, well, it's safe to say the home runs didn't come easily for Damian.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then looking around, spinning on his chair, being like, "Did everyone get it? Did everyone get me?"
yeah. But yeah, overall, a lot of fun. Even though people think that Vlad Jr. is Cuban. Did you see that floating around, the ESPN graphic?
ESPN thought he was Cuban, which
Yeah.
is like, that's none of the things he is. It's
No.
just like his family is from the Dominican Republic, and he was born in Canada, and then plays most of his games in America. So it's, I mean, you might have been like Vladimir Guerrero, Polish, underneath it. It's
Yeah.
the same shit. It's like he's not at all what you're saying he is.
He's famously not Cuban.
Yeah. Plenty of Cubans, by the way, in
A lot
this.
of Cubans.
Ton of Cubans. I think 37.5% of the home run derby was Cuban dudes, and it was going to be a full Cuban outfield for the AL to start until Robert hurt himself. So,
But the other two remaining Cubans in the outfield, a movie that does not star Danny Glover.
no, it's the symbol. They do the arms flapping that we've seen Madrigal do for Angels in the outfield. Cubans in the outfield just puffing a cigar. I guess is that the move?
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, but so Adolis Garcia, first batter of the game, he made a great play on a ball that it was a tough play regardless, but I think he also lost it in the sun and then made a great recovery and caught it. And then the next batter, Arozarena, made a great catch off of both right at the wall, not quite robbing home runs, but close. And Cole seemed rather amused. But yeah, that was a ton of fun. Obviously the NL actually winning a game.
Yeah.
The fact that it ended with there being drama and getting to see the hometown favorite Julio Rodriguez get that chance. Very, very similar to, and I will say, I pointed this out before John Smoltz said anything. It was very reminiscent of the WBC with the Trout versus Shohei final at bat, where you're like, whatever happens, this is really fun.
Yeah, this is what you want to get to in this position. And it's fun to see those Seattle fans get behind Julio in the way he did. He took some cuts and worked a good walk. I mean, obviously, seeing him walk it off is the most dramatic thing you could have there, which I guess, I don't know how people out there feel, but I guess I generally root for the National League, but it's a real, I don't care. I'm rooting for the story, kind of,
I think there's a lot of caveats here, but in the years that I thought the Cubs could get to the World Series, and when it still counted towards home field, I was rooting for the NL and actually cared.
Yes.
I'm not saying that I wish it were still like that. I think that was a huge overcorrection and a mistake.
Yeah.
But when that was a thing, although it's interesting, I don't recall exactly when they stopped that, but the whole 2016 World Series would have been different if not for that rule.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, I guess it's sort of like when you kick a field goal and then there's a penalty that would give you a first down, where you're like, well, I don't want to take points off the board. That feels weird. We have the points. Yeah. I don't want to take the World Series off the board. It ended up fine. But if I got really greedy, would you rather win Game 7 at Wrigley? Sure, that would have been pretty neat. But yeah, so watching this, I think we both were rooting for the NL. Also, they just hadn't won in this. It was 9 years in a row where the AL had won until this one. Which is absurd that it can turn out like that. But once Julio got up there, I was like, if he walks it off, that's the most fun ending here.
He had a pitch to hit. There was a fastball right down the middle that he just stared at. I think he was looking for something else.
He let it go, yeah.
By the way, maybe an unpopular take. I actually think the Cubs lose Game 7 if it's at Wrigley. I think if the Rajai Davis home run happens at Wrigley, the overwhelming negativity and dread that would have taken over that stadium would have made it even more insurmountable. Despite the number of Cubs fans in Cleveland, I think that the vibes would have been so bad that it would not have turned out the same.
I could see that. I guess it's also does the Davis home run happen if it's at Wrigley? Is there, because of the butterfly effecting of everything
distance-wise and all that,
and just, but yeah, I could see something falling apart at Wrigley. Obviously, we saw it in 2003, right? Not to bring that up again, but that how bad the vibes got in in the stadium back then. Yeah, so we'll keep it. We won't take the points off the board in this scenario. But congrats, National League, big National League fan over here. Yeah.
Did you see any of the Futures game And did the Cubs get into it? I didn't keep track of it.
I did not. PCA and BJ Murray, I believe, were the representatives, and nothing really happened.
Mhm.
I don't think either one got a hit. But they were there, and that's fun. And the main thing I saw from PCA was that he was sitting and talking to Ken Griffey Jr.
That's
Like
cool.
in the stands. So couple of center
Well,
fielders.
his mom did kind of act with Ken Griffey Jr. in a way.
Yeah, she did. I mean, they were like because he appeared in that movie, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
the villain in that movie. He hits
Yeah.
the home run that eliminates the Twins.
That's true. That's a little decades old beef between PCA and Griffey. That's fun.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so fun All-Star break. We've got another day or two here, and then the Cubs start the second half playing the Boston Red Sox, the last place Boston Red Sox, who are 5 games over 500, I want to say, and would be leading the AL Central despite being in last place in the AL East. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's tough luck for basically everyone in the AL East. It's tough luck. I'm trying to see if they would be, what's their record? We got Boston is 48 and 43. So yeah, they would be tied with the Brewers, basically. Just 1 game behind the Brewers if they were in the NL Central, but they'd be leading the AL Central. So yeah, it's one of those things where I think Boston fans feel like they're having a worse season than they are, just because I mean, when you're looking up at 4 other teams, it feels pretty hopeless, and one of those teams is Tampa Bay. So Boston is 9 games behind Tampa Bay.
Right.
Baltimore's only 2 games behind Tampa Bay.
Given how Tampa started, that is incredible. Good for Baltimore, but also like it's unlikely, but all 5 teams are within 9 games of each other. Like anything could happen conceively in that division.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Cubs are going to be they're going to have 3 with Boston coming right out of this, and we keep saying it, but a really important stretch because the schedule gets kind of soft for a couple of weeks, at least in comparison to the other NL Central contenders.
And if you're getting soft for a couple weeks, try our new sponsor, Hims.
Get in there,
Roman.
Yeah, get in there. Take quite a few and see if you can get hard for a full week. We are not recommending that medically, but
nor are we sponsored by anyone.
No, too bad.
So yeah, I guess let's backtrack to the Cubs' final week of the season. So
you were at the Yankees
of the season,
series, right?
the first half. Yeah, I was at all 3 games of the Yankee series. The Milwaukee series ended kind of frustratingly. I mean, they had, after that first brutal game where they blew the 6-0 lead, then they had the crazy Ian Happ throwing out 2 people at the plate game. I think that was the last game that Sarah Sanchez and I spoke about when we did the pod last week. Then on Wednesday, the Cubs come out. They win that game on that crazy Mike Tauchman, like down to his final strike against Devin Williams. Huge knock.
Yeah.
Which was really, really cool to see. And then on Thursday, Yan Gomes, Ken Schultz's favorite player, Yan Gomes, hits a clutch 2-run homer to tie the game, and then Fulmer immediately gives up a bomb to Caratini. And honestly, I felt bad for Fulmer. Like he has been better. That's a really tough spot where like I feel like Ross is trying to, for whatever reason, put him in like slightly higher leverage situations little by little, where it's like, okay, now it's not a 6th inning spot anymore. We're throwing you in a tied game, and that it was tough. It was like both frustrating but also acceptable to split that series, because I feel like there's a world where the Cubs easily could have just lost all 4.
Could have gone 4 either way. Also, I want to say Michael Fulmer did have Caratini clearly struck out, and the umpire blew the call. So
that doesn't help.
That happened right before that too. Whatever calls go, in theory it evens out at the end of the year. But he had him struck out, and
the umpiring was terrible that whole.
I didn't see every game, but I feel like I was hearing more about it than usual when I'd be checking in on Twitter and stuff. So yeah, it's 2-2, and going up to Milwaukee that's not a bad result, but the Cubs have been bad enough for so much of the first half that not bad isn't enough now at some point. So, and that some point is it's a month-long season now, because it's what happens up to the deadline here and which way they go.
And it's also the difference between making up 2 games and making up 0 games in the standings.
Yeah, the Brewers will take that split against the Cubs all day. They will every day. So that does them more favors than it does the Cubs for sure. So that was fine, but then they go to New York and win a series.
They did, and I was at all three games, kind of in different places for all of them. Friday night, I went with our guy Tommy McNamara, who I know
Oh,
you know.
nice. Yeah, very funny,
Fun,
very funny comic.
very funny comic. Also a Chicago-based guy who has one of my favorite jokes where he says, "I moved to New York to pursue my dream of eventually moving back to Chicago."
Yeah, it's a lot of people's dream. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but so we went and we sat in the bleachers on Friday night, which was, I think Jameson Taillon broke the Yankees. They fired their hitting coach. They
Yep.
brought in Sean Casey now. Taillon went. I don't think he finished 8 full innings, or maybe he did,
I
but
think it was 7 innings of one hit ball.
yeah, one hit. He was like
Yeah.
one of the only pitchers to go into Yankee Stadium and do that he's like one of three guys who have done that in the past 20 years.
I
And
was,
it was
yeah.
pretty cool to see
I was
their first win in the Bronx.
I was upstate, yeah, their first win in the Bronx ever, really, and like in certainly modern times. And I was upstate with a bunch of friends at a lake house at the time, and one guy's a big Yankee fan. And before the game started, he said Tyon's going to throw a no hitter, and then like the Wi-Fi was really spotty, and I got to check it and came back later. I was like, you're pretty close. Like
Yeah.
it was like almost as close as you could imagine, and he was not surprised at all.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling too, and I've kind of stayed away from betting on sports in general because, in fairness, like I really did have a feeling that Tyon was going to have a good game for some reason, but I've also had plenty of feelings that have been wrong about other things all
Sure.
the time. So you tend to remember the ones you're right about. But yeah, it's pretty funny that Tyon has just had an absolutely brutal season and then goes into his former team stadium and shoves. And Rodon was good. It's not like he pitched a bad game. I think he gave up 2 runs in his work in his first start for the Yankees. But yeah, 3-0 win on Saturday or on Friday, excuse me. Went to the game on Saturday. Had nice seats down the third baseline. Cubs did not win in that one. Got to see Tauchman make it a little bit closer with a home run, but I think they were down 6-1 when he hit that, so it was kind of over pretty early. But then on Sunday, a game that Hendricks was like kind of working in and out of trouble, and then just couldn't keep doing it. Ended up giving up back-to-back home runs. Cubs go down 4-1, and at that point, I'll be completely honest. I was like, there's no way the Cubs win this game. I just didn't. I didn't think that they had a shot, but a little help from our former prospect Gleyber Torres booting what should have been an inning-ending double play ball opens the door. Cubs tie the game, and then they end up going ahead 7-4, and got to see big Alzolay save. And 2 out of 3 at Yankee Stadium. We get to see Taillon hopefully take some momentum into the second half. Also doing it without Dansby, which is impressive because I tell you what, the Cubs lineup is already not great. When you have no Dansby, it's really glaring.
The lineup ends early, and also Nick Madrigal got hurt, and it's they're calling it a moderate hamstring strain. And Madrigal had been hitting really well, and he has been the Cubs' best defensive third baseman too since he's been up here. So losing Madrigal is also going to hurt for this month too. And you mentioning Alzolay nailing down the save, we got to see that a couple of times this week. And Alzolay, like we said about Steele, and those guys are boys. They've been friends, like legit more than baseball friends for a while now. And Alzolay is also a guy who seems to really enjoy the big moment, and that is a thing you really like in an end of game guy, in a closer, in a high leverage reliever. So that was cool to see the first half. And I mean, ending on a series win in New York against the Yankees with a comeback win is about as good as you can, at least fall into the All-Star break there. And now it's all about what's coming out. And what's coming out is, as you said, they're going to Boston, but the Cubs are 42-47 right now.
I think it's a Wrigley, actually, right?
Or they're playing Boston, yes, sorry, at Wrigley. But the Cubs are 42-47, 7 games back of the Reds, who've gone nuts since Ellie De La Cruz came up and went nuts. And you're seeing a lot of like first player to ever do this with Ellie.
He stole second, third, and home on 2 pitches.
Yeah. It's hard to do, and he was just clowning the entire Brewers team. Was so fun to see. So
the bat flip and point at the bat, maybe my favorite moment of this year.
He's just incredibly fun to watch, and it sucks that he's on a different team in our division. But the Reds are sitting there 50-41 right now, 7-3 over their last 10. Now they've been like so hot, it seems hard to sustain this, right? So I do think they'll come back to earth a little bit, but also the Reds should be buying at the deadline, and they have a strong farm system. They continue to have a strong farm system even after graduating Matt McClain and Ellie, obviously, and bringing up a number of young dudes who've been great. So it's sort of like you can expect the Reds to come back to earth a little bit, I think, and that's optimistic as a Cubs fan who wants to see them contend. But the thing is, they're probably going to get better. The roster is going to get better too. So,
I mean, the fundamental question is, even if we were fortunate enough for the Reds and Brewers to go 500 in the second half, do we think the Cubs can play 7 games or 8 games above 500?
Right. If the Reds, you need them to basically go below 500, I think. Like, you need the Reds and Brewers to probably both go below 500, because I mean 6 games is not nothing. This is, the Cubs are 42-47, the Reds are 50-41. It's a big difference. That's a lot to make up, and it's more than halfway home here. It is it's like 10 games beyond halfway home as we're talking now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you're going to have to kind of make it up in head-to-heads. And looking at the schedule, the Cubs don't play. They've got a 4-game set against Cincinnati at the end of this month and beginning of next month. And then after that, they play Milwaukee at the end of August. So that's going to be, if the Cubs can hang in there, even if they stay roughly where they are now, there's a 7-game stretch from August into September where the Cubs have 3 against Milwaukee, and then 4 at Cincinnati. And I think that could be kind of the make or break series if the Cubs are able to stick around. And then, of course, the final 3 games of the regular season are 3 games at Milwaukee. So
you've got the head-to-heads to do it here. You do. You can make up a lot of ground if you dominate those head-to-heads, right? But that's why it's so frustrating to go 2-2 when you could have gone 3-1 against Milwaukee. And the other frustrating thing is the trade deadline's over there August 1st, right? And that's literally the day after game 1 of a 4-game set with Cincinnati. So it's like, could we make the trade deadline August 4th? That, it really feels like, because if you sell off and then you sweep Cincinnati, that's going to feel really stupid, but also if you don't sell anything and then you get swept by Cincinnati, that's going to look really stupid. So it's in a tough position, but I can't have sympathy when that's pretty deep into the season. That is deep. Even though, yes, you have the head-to-heads to make it up, but you should know what this team is. And between now and the trade deadline, the Cubs have, 7 games with St. Louis mixed in there too? St. Louis sucks, but do you feel super confident about the Cardinals not sort of coming back to the mean a little bit and killing the Cubs in such an important stretch? I don't know.
I will say, if the Cardinals come back and win the entire division, I'm going to lose my mind. But...
Sure. Yeah, I will. I will quit. But yeah, we've got, it's
not even the podcast, just life.
Yeah. I'm pretty close. So we've got Boston, Washington, St. Louis. That's all at home. And then White Sox, St. Louis away. And that takes us up to the trade deadline. Those teams,
so
they're
from now until
bad.
The end of July, the only team that is above 500 that the Cubs face are the Red Sox, and they're in last place in their division. Yeah.
You gotta so this has to be the hot run right now. You have to beat it up. You have to absolutely crush between now and the end of the month. And then that'll tell us where we're going, I guess.
Yeah. Anything else?
I do. The draft happened.
Talk about it.
Yes, the draft happened. The Cubs with their first pick was the 13th pick of the draft, and it's a weird part in the draft, right? Also, Adam, do you remember how much last year sucked?
I do, and the previous year.
Yeah. 13th after sucking that hard, that feels bad, because we went 39-31
lucky
in the
number.
second half. Oh God! But with the Cubs with their 13th pick picked a Maryland infielder. He's listed as a shortstop. He's not going to play shortstop. His name is Matt Shaw, and I liked it. What Matt Shaw is he's played great in the Cape Cod League, which is a lot of the best, sort of an all-star compilation of dudes playing with wooden bats. He was, I think he might have even won MVP of the league, but he played great there. He played great at Maryland for 3 years. He was the Big Ten Player of the Year. There was a viral clip of him hitting a 507-foot grand slam against Iowa. Which is metal bat.
Even with the metal bat, yeah.
507's 507. He's giving me, I'm not saying he's going to be this, but like a little Dustin Pedroia vibes, a little like a little college shortstop who he's like 5'11", 185. He's athletic, but he's got a really quick bat. The power's decent. And I think that he's a good hitter. And sitting there at 13, there was a couple guys available, but arguably the best offensive player from college was who the Cubs picked, and I'm not going to have a problem if that's what you do,
Right.
So, to me, I was happy with the first pick. The second pick, I was a little more skeptical on. It's a guy named Jackson Wiggins. 2 years in a row, we take a Jackson pitcher, I believe. But yeah, we've got Jackson Wiggins who pitched pretty badly and then got Tommy John at Arkansas. And to me, second round is kind of too early for this sort of a reclamation pick based on stuff. But unless it's...
And that was the compensatory pick, right? From that's Contreras? Yeah.
That is what we got for Wilson Contreras. That is what, for a team that, a front office that seemed pretty sure they were never going to extend Wilson Contreras for, a year and a half. When I see ridiculous things on Twitter at Away Games Pod, but people being like, there was only one deal for Wilson and the Astros pulled out. That's not Jed's fault. It is Jed's fault. He can't find a trade for a guy who, even in a bad year this year, is out producing all of the Cubs catchers combined by WAR. That's a fact.
Yeah.
He had a lot of time to come up with more trades, but what we got for Wilson Contreras is Jackson Wiggins. So he's a reclamation, but he's an injury guy, 6'6". He kind of looks like Ben Brown, Cubs prospect up there, but hard throwing righty, projectable. And then those were rounds 1 and 2. Round three was a shortstop from Florida, who maybe we'll go into the deeper rounds in more depth later on.
Sounds like a task for you and Brian Smith.
Yeah, could be. But I will point out one other pick I did like a lot was the 5th round pick, which is a guy named Michael Carrico. He's a catcher, left-handed, and he played for Davidson, which is in D1. Obviously, the schedule's not the best. But his sophomore year, he hit 407. He hit 20, I think he had 20 homers. Like,
pretty good.
It's good. It's hard to do in a video game. So,
yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, as always, it's like you figure none of these guys are going to be relevant until at least 2-3 years from now, probably, right?
Yeah, Shaw, you do like that Matt Shaw mentioned Zach Neto, who went from draft to the Angels starting lineup in under a year, but he mentioned him as what he's trying to do. But realistically, if Matt Shaw is a very fast progression, you're looking at him at Wrigley in like 2025 at some point, end of probably.
And one thing that you pointed out, I think, on our Twitter was that it was really cool that apparently Dansby Swanson called him like almost immediately, which is what you want from the guy you gave a big contract to, and that you want to be a leader of this team and someone to like usher in the new generation of competitive Cubs baseball, a phrase that we all miss. Yeah, man.
So I thought draft-wise, it looked decent. I like the first round pick. I like some of the mid round picks. Didn't like the second round pick. Really would have been fine with it later in the draft. But yeah, that's what we're looking at right now. You get the best college bat you can at 13. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, you got any other any notes?
Nope. That's it. At Away Games Pod. Follow us there.
All right. Later. Good luck on those immaculate grids, everybody.
Get them.